In a previous life, before you were press secretary, you worked for the campaign, and you made a comment, I believe, on Fox, in which you said President Trump will not allow the coronavirus to come to this country. Given what has happened since then, obviously, would you like to take that back?
Well, first, let me note, I was asked a question on Fox Business about the president's travel restrictions. I noted what was the intent behind those travel restrictions, which is we will not see the coronavirus come here. We will not see terrorism come here, referring to an earlier set of travel restrictions. I guess I would turn the question back on the media and ask similar questions. Does Vox want to take back that they proclaim that the coronavirus would not be a deadly pandemic? Does the Washington Post want to take back that they told Americans to get a grip, the flu is bigger than the coronavirus? Does the Washington Post likewise want to take back that our brains are causing us to exaggerate the threat of the coronavirus? Does the New York Times want to take back that fear of the virus may be spreading faster than the virus itself? Does NPR want to take back that the flu was a much bigger threat than the coronavirus? And finally, once again, the Washington Post, would they like to take back that the government should not respond aggressively to the coronavirus? I'll leave you with those questions, and maybe you'll have some answers in a few days.
Yep. Kayleigh,
thank you very much.
You were prepared for that.
Because what else would a Trump administration official be if not deflecting the blame for their own failures and shortcomings onto someone else? This is Trump's new press secretary absolving herself of her insane claim that Trump wouldn't let the coronavirus enter the United States, which aired on Fox Business on February 25th.
I mean, isn't it just a matter of protecting us, our national security really being at stake? And he's sort of the last line of defense there. Or first
That's
line,
right.
I should say.
Absolutely. This president will always put America first. He will always protect American citizens. We will not see diseases like the coronavirus come here. We will not see terrorism come here. And isn't that refreshing when contrasting it with the awful presidency of President Obama?
Kayleigh McEnany, thank you so much. Good to see you tonight.
Thank you.
Again, the most important point to note here is that she's comparing this statement to articles written nearly a month earlier, just in case you thought there was a planet on which she'd be acting in good faith. Now, as for the articles that McEnany uses to absolve herself, let's go through them. She references the Washington Post article entitled, "Get a Grip, America, the flu is a much bigger threat than coronavirus for now," which was posted on February 1st, at which point there were 8 cases. So when the Washington Post wrote, right there in the title, that the flu was a bigger threat than coronavirus for now, it's because the flu had been a bigger threat than the coronavirus at that point. She points to a New York Times article entitled, "In Europe, fear spreads faster than the coronavirus itself," which was from February 18th and isn't even about the United States. Rather, it discusses how, with about 40 cases confirmed in Europe, people and places associated with the illness were being stigmatized. She points to NPR's article titled, "Worried about catching the new coronavirus? In the US, flu is a bigger threat," which again is from January 29th, at which point the flu was a bigger threat in the US. The literal second paragraph of that article even makes this qualification, stating, quote, "So far, the only people infected in the US have been those who have traveled to the region in China where the virus first turned up in humans. And though that could change, one thing is for certain, another severe respiratory virus that threatens lives, the influenza or flu virus, is very active in the US right now." And guess what? It did change, just like the article said could happen. And finally, she references the Washington Post article, "Why we should be wary of an aggressive government response to coronavirus," from February 3rd, which was a piece warning of the dangers of scapegoating marginalized populations. The article says, quote, "Respiratory diseases are not easily contained by travel bans or quarantines. Rather than contain an epidemic, harsh coercive policies often scapegoat already marginalized populations and intensify panic rather than quell it." And the article was exactly right. This respiratory disease wasn't easily contained by Trump's supposed brilliant travel ban, and it did scapegoat a marginalized population in the process. In other words, it was exactly correct. The point of her smug rant was to draw an equivalence between these articles from late January and early February, all of which are measured and generally still hold true, and her insane claim from nearly a month later that Trump was going to unilaterally protect this country from coronavirus, which he clearly was not able to do. When those articles were written, the flu was a bigger concern than coronavirus, and most of them even qualify that such a reality could change, which ended up happening. And they explain the dangers of scapegoating marginalized populations, which was not only the case anyway, but that was exacerbated by Trump himself, who insisted on referring to the coronavirus as the Chinese virus. There have been hundreds, if not thousands, of instances of hate crimes against Asian Americans in the days and weeks surrounding the spread of the virus. And I'm certain that having the President of the United States hold press conferences every single day, equating the virus with a particular region, did no favors to the people whose descendants came from that region. But what McEnany said about Trump being way too strong and powerful to allow the virus to come here is not only absurd and grossly sycophantic, but it was wrong when she said it on February 25th. We had our first case in the US on January 20th, and the first death was on February 6th. So if someone can explain to me how Trump was going to keep out a virus that not only had already been spreading throughout the United States for 3 weeks, but was already killing Americans, I would be fascinated to hear it. The reality is that McEnany's Fox Business rant was never based on facts, it was a job audition. She was showing Trump how hard she could grovel at his feet, and as expected, she got hired. Trump was never going to keep the virus out, and even when it got here, Trump did next to nothing to contain the spread. But they never cared about reality. The White House was only ever interested in PR and attacking the media for rightfully sounding the alarms about the virus. So McEnany might feel satisfied at her answer that she was clearly dying to give, but drawing a bunch of arbitrary false equivalencies isn't something to be proud of, and especially not when it's in the interest of absolving her own dangerous disinformation.